What's up, beautiful humans? Thank you so much for being here. The following interview with me and Pilar is going to probably change your mind about a lot of things or just open your perspective and see things differently, especially if you are in the world of personal development, self-help, new age spirituality. We kind of flip the script quite a bit on manifesting, on the virtue of helping people, trying to inspire people, healing, like the whole, this phenomenon with healing and healing these wounds and shadow work, finding, soul family, masculine, feminine energies, all of these popular topics. We dive into it, and social media tactics, all these different things. So this is going to be very important for you. I'm excited for you to listen. Thank you for being here. I honor you. I love you. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, leave a little comment, give it a thumbs up, and let's go. I'm just going to start this thing. Today we have someone incredibly near and dear to my heart, a spiritual mentor, but so much more than that. The one who's created this space for me to activate my own divinity, so beyond any words and also any identities. Pilar Lesko, how are you?
Hi. I'm well. Yeah, I feel good. I feel like this is the first, well, I shouldn't say that. That I'm excited to be on this podcast because it's yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
That means a lot. What's in the intro? I gave you a brief introduction, and the best way how I like to get to know people is just by listening to them, not some what we would call like matrixy, like here's your list of accomplishments, But for you, what's just like a quick tidbit for people just to get a slight feel before we dive deep into it of who you are and all those fun things?
Right now I'm feeling like I'm really getting in touch with and unifying with and merging with the level of myself that doesn't have any veils.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say veils, like at this point for me, they're much more subtle. So there's no need to, there's no attachment to like things I've done in my business or like systems I've worked in or like any of it, like healing, human design, astrology, like all of that's just gone. And I just feel really in touch with like who I be as a creator and how that is infinite and limitless. My costume right now is like consciousness and energy, like mad genius wizard.
Yeah, that's a good description. And I love that because to like what you can already tell, right, is like when you say the word costume, like identity, right, of in this humanness, what am I like? Because what you said before is, the astrology, the human design, all the other things that you've done, but that's not like necessarily who you are. So the costume you're wearing now is that energetic mad genius. And how do you define veils? Like, what is a veil, to put it simply?
So
I'm gonna probably push you on simplifying some of these terms that you use just like
that's good for me. I need
here
that.
and there. Yeah.
Okay. So caveat is that they can function in like from very dramatic to very subtle ways. And I think the important piece around veils is it's not that veils are wrong or bad. Nothing is. It's when we've become attached to seeing ourselves as the veils. So like a veil is just, it would function in a bunch of different ways for different people. For some people, like the veil of, well, let me just use me as an example. I knew, I was aware that I was going to have to put certain veils on in my business for people to even like find me and resonate with me.
Yep.
But I knew what I was doing and I knew who I was behind them. So I guess in this sense, we could just call a veil an identity attachment, but there's a difference between someone who's unconsciously veiling themselves and someone who's consciously veiling themselves because they know that's what they need to do at that level of the game.
Okay, that makes sense. And we'll get deeper into all these fun things, which it doesn't sound like it, but we're just easing into it, which is kind of funny. So I would love to talk about how we met in this lifetime. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
So I'll tell a quick story. So it was, I think it was September I'm not sure if we met in September, but it was September 2020. And I had just launched or announced that I was starting my first group coaching course. And it was about releasing fear to attract abundance / money. And it wasn't going how my ego wanted it to go. Like not a lot of signups were happening easily, organically and naturally. So I Googled the literal phrase, how to do business as a projector. And for those who don't know what that means, a projector is a human design type, which you already mentioned. I've done I've 1 or 2 podcasts about that, so people should generally know what that is at least. And we are different. And you are also a projector. And so, but anyway, so I think the second or third video I watched was a podcast interview with you, so with Pilar, about the exact thing about how projectors can do business differently because we are so different in our energy type and how we expend energy. And so I dove into your website and I read, it was the article about, was it what you wrote about how you made $50,000 in a month?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the crazy thing about the article was it was so different, right? Then it wasn't like, here's how to make like 10 tips to make 10K, or like something like that. It was just different. And I've never really felt called to work with someone closely because I felt like I could always either quickly like soak it in from watching videos or just a quick conversation, or like things just like click pretty, like I download it pretty easily. And so, as we've talked about before, like working with a coachy coach has never been my jam either. And that's initially why I didn't like, it took me, I think, a while to get into like the quote unquote coaching world, is because I didn't like the cheesiness of it or whatever. So anyway, long story short, I filled out a form, and also that form was a long ass form, which was also very different than most people are just like, let me hurry and get you in the door so I can, but I had to spend like 30 minutes probably filling out that thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is wonderful. So that's a quick story. Do you have anything you want to add to that? I know that's mostly my perspective, all my perspective, but.
You applied to work with me right around my birthday. Mm-hmm. And when I saw your name on the form, I just knew that I knew you. Mm-hmm. And it was a cool like timestamp anchor moment in my business too, because you and a whole group of clients or divine appointments all sort of showed up at the same time at like it was it really showed me, like it illuminated for me the level I was now at because of the level of people that were coming to work with me.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's awesome. So why I wanted to ease into this is because we're going to definitely talk about some things that discuss some things that are like a 180 from what some people believe or think, or just because that's what they've really only seen. So how I want to do this, Pilar doesn't know too much about what we're about to do, but so we're going to flow. So what I want to do is briefly cover a topic, and there's no rules, but we'll just start here of, okay, here's this topic of personal development, self-help, spirituality, whatever. And then what is like the trap, or how do we get hooked into it, or how is it distorted, or what's another way to look at it? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for this. Here we go. Let's just jump into it. So the first one I want to talk about, probably the most popular thing in this world and industry right now, is manifesting and attracting and all those fun things.
Mm-hmm.
So how,
Mm-hmm.
just briefly, like how would, in the perspective of the coach world or the personal help world, whatever the hell, what's like a quick description, and then how do you view it?
So what's a quick description of how like other people would describe it? And then
Yes. Yeah. So let's go through, like, here's like
why am I doing both?
well, because I'm interviewing you, but I'll chime in, right? But the manifesting, right, is, okay, I'm going to attract this. I'm going to think about this thing. I'm going to write it in my
Mm-hmm.
journal.
Create your reality.
Yeah. Create my reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm here. What about feeling like the emotion? So, because that goes into it, right? Like creating the reality. Like, I'm going to manifest this thing. I'm going to manifest abundance. I'm going to manifest a partner. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to write down how much money I want. I'm going to write down how this partner makes me feel. Da 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 da
Mm-hmm.
da.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is like the general overview. You agree? Would you add anything to that?
I think there's different branches. There's like basic law of attraction manifestation, which is just like hold the frequency. There's manifestation that involves subconscious reprogramming, which goes like one layer deeper. There's the
Yeah.
manifestation with like just look at things, like vision boards. Like there's all these little
Right.
branches off of the like law of attraction tree.
Boom. I love that. So we
Mm-hmm.
just touched on all of it. Everyone gets law of attraction tree. Um, so how do you view manifestation?
Okay. So I have two different ways I can describe this.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see, what I've seen for pretty much my whole journey is that, so it's really we are creating our realities. That's true. So that there's aspects to law of attraction that are true, and law of attraction is one of those teachings that was cherry picked off of like a larger set of teachings and
Mm-hmm.
taught to people. So it actually like goes with a larger set, like a set of mirrors that it's a part of. So what I see is that manifestation, usually at a certain level of consciousness, you start working with it. And the quote trap I see is manifestation can actually like stunt people and keep them at a certain level of consciousness where they're just looping at the desire level of consciousness, which is actually like not a very high level of consciousness to just be looping on what you desire all the time.
Interesting.
The other piece that's really important here is to be taught that all of our desires are pure and true. That's only like half true. I don't actually like, I can't get behind that because there are so many people whose desires are still coming from their false aspects, or are still coming from aspects of them that are hooked into things that are artificial. So I agree that your desires are pure and true once you become really clear in your field and you have like cleared away a lot of false aspects and gotten a lot of your energy back from artificial timelines and artificial matrices. But when you're still hooked into those, you could think that your desires are you and they could actually be something that's not you, wanting to keep you at the level of consciousness where your sole focus is more money, more cars, a new boyfriend, now this, and it just turns into a loop. And the issue, or it's not even like the issue, but what you come to find, and this is where I see people being stunted, is you get into that power of being a creator being that's attracting your reality and manifesting your reality. And you never get the chance, if you're like very hooked into that, you never get the chance to move to levels beyond manifestation levels, which is where you can get to the point where the need to will or manifest or desire your reality into being drops off, because your will is unified with divine will. So whatever's meant for you actualizes. It's a completely different feeling than needing to work to get something to appear. The things that are meant for you are just there waiting for you as you attune to the next level, or as you attune to that part of reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different things here. So to note is like manifesting isn't quote unquote like bad. It's not wrong. It's like,
no,
it's like, it's an, as you said, like a state of consciousness, like, okay, I'm now being introduced to law of attraction stuff. That's awesome. But then
none
if
of
you,
these things are bad or wrong. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're okay.
None of them are bad or wrong. It's when you interact with them from a place that isn't sovereign, you'll get hooked into where these teachings have been infiltrated. Like you'll get hooked into where these teachings keep people like looping on certain levels and looping in these traps, when actually that person could have moved beyond that a long time ago. And this is why like the whole cherry picking of teachings can be really dangerous.
Right. And it's not like, and see, this is like where it gets tricky. And even for myself, now that I've, seen something completely different, it's not like, I got to tell everyone, stop manifesting, because that also is not pure. But like, yeah, there's so many different points here. But let's just use let's use a new boyfriend, for example. So how does one graduate from that, right? Typical step is, okay, here's all the things. I'm going to write down the perfect partner. Here's how he makes me feel. I'm going to envision it. I'm going to literally envision us walking on the beach, waking up in the morning, da, 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 da. What's the step, like the graduation step beyond that?
So it's more about like, even looking at it as graduating from it can be like detrimental to people, because then people feel insecure about the level of consciousness they're at instead of accepting it, which is the thing that allows you to move beyond it. So my question wouldn't be how does that person graduate from that, but rather where are the desires for that other human coming from? Like what parts of them want that? What parts of them just like really clear cut, where is that desire coming from? And if it's not already in their field, that has like the thing I would ask too is, and this is what I usually will explain to people, is if you're really enmeshed and like entrenched in manifestation work and personal development work and like new age spirituality, etc., and you're still not getting the things you want, this isn't a you problem. This is an energy field problem.
Oh, like, okay. This is great because this is me. Just use me as an example.
Okay.
Because that will probably make it easier.
Yeah. So, okay. So you were someone who was being stunted. Like your energy, because of what you were hooked into, you were being prevented through your own consent from being and operating at the level that your consciousness had already attuned to, that was already waiting for you.
And that's why like quote unquote manifesting like wasn't working.
Yeah. And something that's important to note too is a lot of times people's higher levels will actually put a block on things working for them on artificial timelines. Money, business, relationships, and that again, you set that up. You said, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that in this lifetime. I want to be clear, sovereign, and free. So if I'm hooked into these things, don't let it work.
Which I love that when you told me that, I was like, I'm being protected. So
Yeah.
instead of something like, I'm a failure, why isn't this working? It's, I'm being protected. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
get hooked into this, like, now I'm making a ton of money. So I'm just going to keep milking this. It's like, no, like, you, next step, next level, keep going.
Mm-hmm. And you can see how when it does work for someone, it's all the more seductive to stay there because
Mm-hmm.
they found something that works.
And that's
Um,
why and that's why you say looping.
yes, yes. So like with you, it was just a matter of you needed to, well, you didn't need to. You signed
Mm-hmm.
up to get in the field of someone who could hold like the frequency of clearness, like a clear energy field. You were really like easy because you weren't attached to any of the things you were hooked into. You
Mm-hmm.
just needed the like confirmation that there was something beyond it and you could let go of them, and you did.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And so when you talk about like a clear field, what does that mean? Like your energetic field? Because that's something that I've gained a lot of clarity on.
So I said that because you came to work with me. You set up your ejection being catalyzed by just getting in the field consistently of someone who was clear, me. When I say clear, I mean not hooked into any of those things and able to operating at a level where I could see everything going on in your field.
Mm.
So it wasn't like what'll happen is people will go to work with people who are at the same level of consciousness as them and who are infiltrated in the same ways that they are, and it just continues to
Okay. I'm just nodding for people who are listening, and that's why you're chuckling. But yeah, just because,
yeah,
yeah, like I'm like, yeah, it's the loop continues.
yes, yes, and it's the 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 potency and the effortlessness of simply just placing yourself in the field of someone who's at a level that's like really clear. It's that does 98% of the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like with you, that did all the work. You just needed to like come into the field and be like, okay, got it, got it, got it, got it. I would
Mm-hmm.
explain some things to you, but you already knew because you were getting it, because you were calling your energy back, and then you were seeing the realities you had just been existing in for what they truly were.
Mm-hmm. This is good. We can actually just keep using me as an example. I didn't think about doing that, but that just probably give it more context. Um, and to go, and I think the one of the biggest things that I let go of, and this would be important and impactful for a lot of people, is the idea of helping, like that I'm special, that I have a purpose, that I love helping people, like my purpose, like all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I've let go of because I identified as someone who helps people. Um, I'm curious, were you ever in that of like your virtue and all that stuff was attached to like being more woke or helpful?
Oh, before I had my business, before I like birthed my business, one of my biggest false identity attachments was being the healer to all
Mm.
my friends, to everyone. I was everyone's healer. Everyone came to me to feel better. I
Yes.
100% was attached to it. And it was like very rapidly and efficiently destroying me.
Ooh, say I love that. Why? Oh, dang
My,
it. Pause. Anyway, fire alarm just went off. It was destroying you. How is helping people destroying
well, first, I wasn't helping people, is the
you?
first
Ugh.
point we should make.
Yeah.
My attachment to deriving worthiness and sense of self from helping people was the very thing blocking me from helping them.
Oof.
So that wasn't even occurring in a clear and pure and free way. And then on the other end of how it was destroying me, I was just, my field was full of holes. I would just let people suck me dry and then give them whatever, like I would just give and give and give until I was very physically ill for most of those years. I was very tired. I had like I experienced like fragments of my consciousness all the time. Like in hindsight, I can see what my field looked like because of all the cords and all the things that were plugging into me that I was giving consent to plug into me. By the time I birthed my business, I had already cleaned all of that up. I didn't start my business because I felt I was attached to being a healer and helping people and saving the world.
Okay, let's talk about this because this is huge. Because that is the foundation of 99.9% of businesses. Literally anything. And especially, right, coaches, healers, whatever, authors, whatever, right, is like, I'm producing this thing to heal the world, to save the world, to help, to inspire, all those things. So I'm just curious, like, how does that not help? Like, yeah, of course it's helping people, but how is it not helping people?
So it's not that it's not black and white, because it's
Right.
not that our roles that we're asked to play aren't roles of service and of healing and of deep help and support.
Right.
It's when we start to attach ourselves to being seen as that and to deriving sense of self and worthiness from that, that things start to get like clogged and convoluted. When you have that hook into that, that can be the very thing that prevents you from like actually helping. It can be the thing that prevents you from emancipating yourself into a level where you have no attachment to that. Like, it's as simple as like when you enjoy the costumes but don't believe you are the costumes. So once you've like emancipated yourself from thinking you're the costume, then you can go put the healer costume on and recognize, like, have the best time playing that role. But there's no part of you that's plugging your energy into needing to heal people, into needing to be seen as that. You just know that that's the way creation is creating through you. So it's not that you don't lose touch with how beautiful it feels to be of service. That actually just amplifies. Like, the beauty of what you're doing and who you are and what you're facilitating, it amplifies and emancipates itself in a way that's so different from when you were at the level of consciousness where everybody needed to be healed. You were a healer. Everyone's broken. Yes. I need to give all of my energy to help this person feel better. It's the idea of the reason masters like Jesus and all of the everyone from that crew were able to be so effective is because they never saw anyone they healed as broken. They literally never saw them as their body, what they were identified with, as their disease, as their imprints. They saw them as the truth of who they were, and they held that when they were in the field with them.
Ooh, that's beautiful. That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
Man, Jesus. Okay, I love that. There we go. You said you love Jesus?
Uh-huh.
That's good. Cool. So you mentioned earlier, you were talking about healing loops, and we're actually talking about that now again, right? Like, as a healer, looping into that. But I want to talk about like the individual, because that's such a popular thing now and I've talked about this a little bit, like, of why you don't need to heal, because that implies this, what we just literally got done talking about, of Jesus, like, he didn't, like, the disease or whatever, like, he didn't see them as a sick, diseased person. That was just like a thing, right? That wasn't them. And so that's, I mean, I speak for myself, is that continuous betterment of always looking for something, like, okay, like, let me keep making new goals and like all these things, that it was keeping me looped entrapped of no goal's ever good enough,
Mm-hmm.
no money. Like literally, like I still have moments of that a little bit, but now I'm completely aware that's like, no, that's not real at all. But before, it was a different feeling of why isn't it enough?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
why, no matter how successful, no matter how many people I help, right? No matter where I live, no matter how much I travel, it's still not enough. And I'm keep searching for those things to like plug a hole. And but
Mm-hmm.
how is healing, like the quest to heal ourselves, how,
The fixing healing loop.
yeah, the fixing healing loop for like an individual. Like if I'm searching to heal my trauma, childhood wounds, yes, that can be beneficial. We
Mm-hmm.
get, hopefully people know by now this is very nuanced conversation, but yeah, do your thing on that.
So my perspective on this continues to evolve as I like see it more and more clearly from new levels. But yes, of course, the natural healing process of like the inner child, like imprints, the the shadow, which I don't even do that anymore. I don't even like to acknowledge the shadow as
Really?
a
Why?
thing.
Why?
Um, because at a certain point to relate to yourself as having dual aspects is no longer like necessary and it doesn't feel good. Like
Mm.
it just drops off. It's not that it's never to say that you become fully, oh wow, I don't even know if I agree with this anymore. It's people hear this and people will react to the idea of like, well, the healing never ends. There's
Correct.
always something new to work on.
Yes.
Yes and no, because when you become really clear, the way healing works as an organic process is that every time you start to unify with the higher or next level of yourself, you're meeting a level of yourself that's already operating at a higher frequency bandwidth than the one you were just in. So the frequency of that next level of self is going to naturally and very effectively override, overwrite, and purify you as you come up to meet it. So the aspects of you that can't come with you are going to get cleared. They're going to have to drop off. That's when healing occurs. That's when you have big clearings or big releases or big revelations as you're seeing like that was a false aspect. I'm seeing it now and it can't come with me. But you don't do anything to go find those things. It just is the natural progression of being clear and continuously unifying with yourself. You're always like, you always have to let go of the aspects of you that can't come to the higher frequency bandwidth. And all those aspects are never, they're not you to begin with. So at a certain point, you can see how when you're living this way, at a certain point, the stuff that can't come becomes more and more and more subtle.
Mm.
And that usually occurs because the person at that level has already gone through letting go of massive amounts of like false aspects, imprints, like karma, like, but there's a point where like karma drops off too.
Mm.
So it's not that you are done, but it's that you don't need to ever, and this is true for all levels. This is why I say the fixing healing loop. You don't need to ever go search what needs to be fixed or healed next because reality, AKA yourself directing your reality, is always going to present you with what's false and what needs to be cleared. It's the natural progression of being a divine human. As we move through levels, we're always presented with whatever can't come with us. I always like when I used to teach this before I got into like just teaching through levels, all I would say was trust reality to always organically initiate and heal you. Always. Like, think about this is what I used to tell people. Like, okay, let's say you take a week off from personal development and you just live your life. Everything that you're trying to fix through consistent like fixing and healing, it's still going to come up in your reality. You're still going to get mirrored the aspects of you that you don't want to see. You're still going to be, quote, triggered in the exact way you need to be to release something.
Mm.
But now you're just living your life and enjoying yourself and enjoying your reality, and you're letting reality do the heavy lifting, so that when something is revealed to you, you're like, oh, okay, I got it. Like, now I can take this into my process, and maybe now I'll do some breath work, or I'll journal, or I'll work with a healer. But like, I didn't need to go find this thing. Like, we as a collective need to trust the way like this like holographic universe is set up, specifically like consciousness on Gaia. It's set up in an ascending process, in
Gaia
the
is
sense that
Earth.
we
To serve people who don't know.
we came here to move through levels of consciousness. Gaia's doing it too. Like, it's all already coded in the hardware.
Yeah, I love this, man. Hold on. I want to come back to the Gaia Earth piece, because this is something.
Gaia is Earth.
Just a quick shout out, Gaia is Earth. But with, oh man, there's so many good things. Okay, whatever. We're just going to go into it. So when you talk about Gaia is Earth, and when you talk about she is like ascending, that sounds, at first it's like, what? Like Earth is going through its own, or like ascension process. So what does that even mean?
So Gaia has a consciousness too. And part of the play of being here, we'll just call it the game, the play, was that we chose to go through this process with the planet that was created. Like, we wanted to do it with her, because we are, I want to say, of her, in the sense that like we're designed in a very similar way as her. So when the thing we're living on, like the hardware, the thing that receives upgrades and influxes and energy from other aspects of the universe, from the sun, from the great central sun, from teams and brotherhoods and sisterhoods of light, from people who are like out of density, and from the way this is all functioning, when she receives influxes, we all receive those influxes. So a way I can explain this that is like, this is like a really, I don't want to say triggering one, but people like really don't like this. Or I shouldn't say that. There are people who just are baffled by this. Like, it's very confusing. There is a level of reality in which Gaia is sick and dying, and she needs to be saved. The earth is dying. We need to save her. There is also a level of reality where Gaia is not sick. She's not dying. She is going through her own purification process, just as we are. And there's nothing that needs to be done to save her other than to commit to our own processes, so that we can get enough energy on these higher and higher levels and make those more available to everyone.
Man, that's a whole freaking podcast too, because that goes into like global warming and crap, right?
Purification. Like, we're all going through global warming. Like humans, if you look out into like the 3D hologram right now, everyone's being purified. Everything is being purified. We're seeing like the natural, this is what I was talking about with organic healing. The higher level overrides and overwrites the lower level. The entire planet is going through an overriding process right now. So what we're seeing in 3D is just the natural but very slow combustion and breakdown of structures, systems, people, places, and things that cannot come to the next level because they're not at the frequency of the next level.
So yeah, so Gaia has a consciousness. And when you break down consciousness, right? Like for me is, because I mean, the average human, right? Like I'm looking out the window. Okay, I see water, trees, all those things. It's because like when we think consciousness, we think like a lot. See, but when I'm saying this, it's just confirming like that the earth is alive, right? That I'm thinking, that I can have a thought, that I can have a conversation. Like consciousness is a soul. basically.
What is consciousness can, like, it has to be explained through duality, but what consciousness is, and it gets to a point where it's not dual anymore. Like, this is like why you can only go so far with what consciousness is, because in order to be a knower, like in order to be observing something, there has to be an observer. In order for something to occur, like on a timeline, there has to be time. But at a certain point, as you're trying to understand consciousness, you have to move beyond where time, space, and causality exists. And then you're just looking at time, and you're looking at cause and effect, and you're looking at space, and you're you're seeing like okay, have you ever looked into your own eyes?
Yes, I have.
You've seen your own eyes.
Okay, no, I've only seen the reflection of my eyes.
You've only seen the reflection of your own eyes, because this entire thing is just a reflection. Like when we look up and we think we see the sky, we really just see like an inverted fishbowl dome, like projection. Like it's not, the sky isn't actually there. So
That's
like
actually true.
consciousness
There is no sky.
no.
I've never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing is even with like heat. I think this, like the sun, like we say it's hot, but I don't think it really is. Like the heat is a perception based on our magnetic field or some crap like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a better way to describe this is there's the earth, there's the earth play, there's the play on Gaia, the earth, 3D. There's the universal play, which is when you get into like dimensions beyond 3D. So this is where we get into like past lives, future aspects, like higher aspects. And then you get to the point where you see that that's all still part of the play, and all that's left is I am. Like all that's left is all that is. And this is like not a class. This is why like Rumi poetry and like the Vedanta teachings exist, because like this is the highest pathway to realization, is like through these conversations. It's like through these ideas and these topics, but it's really difficult to grasp in a mature way. And it can like very easily blow out your entire system and your entire perception of reality. So like what consciousness is through duality is going to be different than what consciousness actually is.
That's a good way to put it. Have you seen Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind?
Oh, Stephen Greer?
Mm-hmm.
I love him. Yeah.
So you have seen that? I just watched it over the weekend. And from like, if I watched that, 5 months ago, I would have been like, okay, aliens, cool. But now, because the consciousness of it makes so much sense. So if you haven't seen it, I would go watch it, because it is about aliens, right? Or ETs or whatever, but it's not, right? It goes back into what you talked about, like the universal aspect of things. How there is no time. That's why like they can literally be here. And like they see these light beings, and it's like they meditate, quote unquote, to call them into those places. And so to me, it was just like such a cool connection of all these things. But what were you thinking?
We as humans have the ability to move into levels of consciousness where we're also in no time and like no space. Like a lot of what universal aspects of ourselves show us, like aliens or higher levels or ascended masters, angelic realms, galactic realms, etc., they're showing us what's possible for us, like as a species. Like that's part of, back to the beginning, part of why things like manifestation drop off, because the ultimate, like not even the ultimate, I shouldn't even claim to know what that feels like yet. Being a creator being, it's not like, oh, I can will anything my ego wants into reality. It's not that. It's when you as a creator are fully unified with the creator. So anything that is supposed to be created through you, like, is set forth effortlessly, and anything that's supposed to come to you in your hologram is also set forth effortlessly.
So when you say hologram, to clarify, it's the current reality that we are seeing
your
with our eyes.
perception of reality.
Yeah.
Because my hologram is different than yours, is different than everyone else's who's listening to this.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, and that's part of like what you said with like what the manifesting, like this is what the ego wants.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that's one thing that I'm still experiencing of like really, yeah, like aligning like my will is the divine will.
Mm-hmm.
And like, sweet, let me like, yeah, if it's fun, sweet, but not like forcing. Like I look back at some things that like haven't quote unquote worked, being protected from that is like, okay, like that's not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
And
honestly, go ahead.
no, you go, you finish.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I was just gonna say that I'm aware that when I speak about this, there can be this like air of like, so what do? You just like sit
Yes.
around all day
Yeah.
and you never get anything you like thought you wanted? No, that's what's so cool is when you're tapped into this, your ability to create and your ability to like create what you're meant to create and what wants to be created through you, it amplifies in a way that just goes so beyond like sitting at your desk and making a business plan and like making sales funnels. Like it's and then also too, what many people find is that a lot of what they desired was true. It just needed to be purified. So like there are people who will come to work with me and say like, I feel like I'm supposed to make a lot of money, but the way that they were trying to make it was on these artificial timelines. And then there's this fear of like, if I eject, what if I don't have any money after that?
Yep.
No, they always have money. They always have all that they need and more. And many people who were tuned into like, I feel like I'm supposed to be creating wealth, they are just not on those timelines. They're supposed to be creating wealth on organic timelines and like feeding more energy over there. So you don't stop enjoying being human. It gets more fun, like better.
I like that. And it's like, cause you're letting go of, what's a good way to put that? Yeah. It's like, once you let go of that, it doesn't matter to you. It's like, it's not even important, right? Like how I was supposed to make money over here is not even close to relevant or important. Like it's not a blip because of like the divine will. Like once I align and get in that field and consciousness, then I understand, oh, it just clicks. And it's much more fun. And the wealth is there and all the fun things.
Yeah. And you might find that, and this is what's so important, it's not always the how, it's not always the surface level, what eyes can see that changes. Sometimes it's literally just the level of consciousness changes, but you're actually still you're still quote doing something very similar to what you did over here, but your perception of it being similar is not there because you're like, I'm in a different world now. This is not even close to what I was doing over there, even though it might look the same.
That's actually very important. I'm happy you brought that up because that's one thing I've noticed is like things still look the same, but how I interact and interface and feel about everything is completely different.
Yeah.
And like, it's so hard to explain because you can't explain it really.
No, this is not mind stuff. Like we find ways to make it make sense in a way to mind, but like I'm at the point now where I've completely let go of making sense to people's minds. Like, because it goes beyond mind. Like you can't, somebody who's still over here is not going to be able to make sense with mind something that's going on up here that they can't see. Like it's their mind is going to freak out trying to make sense of it. It's why like so much of this is about unification with the heart and developing like a really really deep sense of receptivity and willingness, because as you start to eject and these old realities drop off, then you're like, oh, whoa, I'm getting it now. Before it was a thing that didn't make sense. Then it was a thing that I could feel. Now it's a thing I know. In a week, it's a thing I am. And then and at
Um,
each juncture, your reality has shifted. Like it, even the difference between I know and now I am that are worlds apart.
I love that. So, like I said, that I feel, I know I am. I like that.
Yeah,
So
me too.
that's cool. The name of your book that you help save the world with. um, that's cool. So I want to make sure we talk about um, this. I mean, all these intertwine beautifully, but it's a popular topic to write. Like, I found my soul family. Um, hmm. So I feel like I should ask you, like, what does that even mean to you? Like, what is a soul family? Like, because people feel connections. Yeah, sweet. I feel like I've known this person forever, but like, what does that actually mean?
So this all varies based on the level of like consciousness and reality you're operating in, because what might feel like soul family as a 16-year-old, you find out as a 26-year-old were just karmic agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so soul family, your soul like monad, your soul group, that's like a cluster of people you're related to on a soul level, that as consciousness, we'll just say that, we'll say it this way, we'll say as consciousness was splitting, your family is going to be the group that your family and the people you're related to are going to be the group that um you split from like closest to last, in the sense that like as consciousness became more and more unique, as souls became like more and more unique, and there was more and more fractals being created, um you're going to find that like there's other soul fractals who are similar to you. It doesn't mean though, like the thing about soul family is it's a frequency bandwidth thing. That's how I know when it's happening. So when you get near someone physically or digitally, just like in the field, who you're closely related to, you're gonna find this like, oh yeah, people can see my hands, right? You're gonna find that like the energy, whereas like with other people, if it's like wah, 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 as you get like near someone you're related to, it's going to be like it's like the bandwidth starts like picking up and picking up, because it's like, imagine getting so close to the thing that's you, to where you like almost blow up, like
Mm.
um so that's one way I can describe it. A very simple way is just like people you feel related to, but that is something we need to be careful with, because similar to like manifesting, you might feel related to someone through like false aspects of self, and then be like, this is my twin flame, and then get into a really, really distorted karmic never ending loop with someone who your ego is attached to being your twin flame, when actually you're just like burning off some karma with them. Um, so my advice with this stuff is like, hold very loosely to who you think your people are, because as you move through levels, as you like unhook from the artificial matrix, who you thought was meant for you is going to change rapidly. And
Mm.
the bandwidth of someone who you're related to is going to become more and more clear. You're going to be like, wow, this feels nothing like how it felt with blah, blah, blah when I was 17 and I thought I was meeting my soulmate. That's not to say, though, that we can't have members in our soul family who we just set up contracts to burn off karma with them. But like the way I'm responding to this is more from the perspective of like the people who the group you've been traveling with through incarnation cycles, that should all be around the same level as you. You should all be kind of hanging out near the same levels of consciousness. So when you link up, it's like, oh, there's more of me. Like there's more of me here.
Mm. And that goes into like what you said about the twin flame stuff, about like spiritual communities, how how it's like everything we've already talked about. It's like the manifesting thing, or the it's because if you get so into like these are my people,
Yes.
then it gets, and not to say like, again, right, it's so nuanced. It's like I still love these people currently, and if we not part ways or move on or whatever, but it's, if these are my people, they can hold you back.
Yes, if you are attached to them being your people and you need them to be that to feel safe, secure, spiritual, connected, worthy, etc. Yes, 100%. And like you said, like it's not that you lose the ability to derive good feelings and good experiences from and with them, but that's been a huge thing in 2020 is like, again, there are a lot of souls who are, I don't really like the word stunted, but their false attachment to their community or their tribe is like the very thing keeping them looping. It's like the very thing keeping them at these levels that like they aren't meant to be operating at anymore.
Probably because it feels safe and familiar.
Oh, it feels, it's all of the reasons why we attach to things, why we over attach to things. Because you can have like, I still have attachments.
That's
Like
part of being human.
yes, but I'm very aware that I'm not that at all. And that isn't it. That isn't like the thing. That's like, it's like food. Like I can enjoy this meal and I'm 100% not attached to needing to have this meal over and over and over and over and over again.
That's a good way to put it. It's like, yeah, I'm enjoying the hell out of this meal, but I don't need this meal forever to make me feel satiated or like, okay.
And if the meal keeps appearing, then cool. Like that's beautiful. And it's there's just one of the most simplistic ways I can explain this is our primary relationship is to God through self. All other relationships are just reflections and mirrors of that. Like that, the primary relationship is to the creator. And that's a really easy way when you like actually start like hooking up into that and like linking that and like running that through your system. That's a surefire way to like burn distortion out of your reality.
Dang. So this is that, even for me, like these are, yeah, I love this because it's such a refreshing and new way. So I want to make sure I ask you, do you feel that there's, what is important for you to share that you haven't shared?
I feel like the important thing here is that there's a lot of this stuff that we're sort of just like touching on.
Yeah, just touching on.
It's hard to just touch on it and have it be something that's like obviously fully unpacked and fully broken down, because like what I've seen is, for example, with my one-on-one clients, their hooks into artificial timelines, the way they eject what occurs for them, who they become, becoming who they already are, like through that, although it follows the same patterning, everybody is having their own unique experience through their own like unique live stream. So with this stuff, with this stuff, there's like there's a level of importance around being willing to like have the veils removed and like fully not understand with mine, but fully get a sense of what's occurring. And I'll say with that, there are a lot of people on the planet right now who still aren't ready for that. Like the veils that I will facilitate removing for people, you have to be at a certain level of like solidity within self to have all those veils removed and not freak out. and have it be like detrimental. But I know like there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who are going to be like, yeah, I do feel kind of weird. Like this has felt a little off, or like I thought what she's saying before, but I've never said it out loud to anyone. If you're feeling that, follow that. Like 100%. I can't tell you how many people come through my doors and say, you said something that I've thought before, but I didn't want to say it because it was weird, or I felt like people wouldn't get it, or it just felt like maybe that wasn't me thinking it. No, that was you piercing through the distortion, trying to get to you. So it's the other piece I think that's really important to say here is we talk about it. Sometimes this stuff has to be explained like it's black and white. It's not black and white, but I'm of the opinion that if you're going to interact with things that are like highly compromised and highly infiltrated, you need to be extremely sovereign, extremely, extremely sovereign. And there's not a lot of people who are that right now because, and this leads into what I was just saying, it kind of all connects. We think the artificial matrix is like reptilians on the news and Walmart and Amazon. Like that's just level one. Like the artificiality, the way infiltration is occurring right now, that moves through many, many sub matrices that people might want to believe are just all light. And like, this isn't ever really, I guess I want to say, I don't really get excited about removing veils, but I know when I have to do it. And it's gotten to the point where like, it needs to be made more clear that there are a lot of like weird things going on in these timelines that might feel like what everyone else is doing. And this is just the thing we're all doing, right? And like the piece of advice I've been telling people is if everyone else is doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. It's just we're like skating around some things that have a lot of like nuance and detail to them. And I want to like give people permission to be like, okay, I'm like getting this. So I'm not just going to like turn this off and forget it ever happened. Like I'm going to really like feel into the fact that I have thought things I'm hearing her say before, but I've never wanted to say them out loud.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a good point. Just because, yeah, we really have just briefly touched on, and that's, that was my intention of like, okay, like let's just kind of break the seal or whatever, and just like pop the lid off. And then there's all the goodies inside that people can go dive into of just like a completely different perspective of manifesting, like having to help people, healing ourselves, the soul family, like all these things that what you said, right? Of because it's popular, everyone else is doing it. It feels like, oh, this is the thing. But yeah, like it's not the thing. There is some truth in there. And that's where it gets so sticky, is because like, oh, this feels familiar. This sounds good. So I'll go with it. There's some truth in there. This is so good. And I know it's how much we'll say the word activated me. It really has been so beneficial for me. And so that's why, so Pilar, like, I appreciate you, but like for everyone else, like this is really just like the tip of the iceberg of, yeah. And just like follow that feeling of like what Pilar said, right? Of like, okay, like I know some things, I can trust some things. Like I've felt that this isn't the thing or this is the thing, and just follow that because you do know. And just speaking from personal experience, like what Pilar said of you saying things to me that just clicked, right? Like I didn't need some deep dive or like big explanation or big seminar. I was like, okay. But it was over and over and over, for months, not just like one quick podcast of like just skimming some things. But like for real, like, I just want to keep going. So maybe we'll have to do this again. But this was so potent that I really want to make sure like this sits and we're not overwhelming peeps.
Okay.
But unless there's something else.
Because
this is your time, baby. Talk to the peeps of because some people will get a lot of the lingo you're saying, but I know a lot of them will also be like, it'll be the first time they've heard a lot of things, or like the second time they've heard it. And so.
Okay, so the final thing that feels important to say, you know what I'll do? I will literally just read something I wrote because it says it better than I could say it.
Love it.
So we're talking about, let me go to it. A lot of the stuff we're talking about, the way we have to talk about it is through the lens of duality or division, in the sense that, like, yes, there is dark energy in this universe. And yes, there are these artificial timelines being constructed that people get like hooked into through their own consent that are continuing to create like more and more dark architecture. Okay, I'm like hearing the words I say. Continuing to create, let me put it this way. The thing that humans have that soulless beings don't have is the ability to create. So imagination and creation. We imagine things, we create them. So, quote, dark energy can't create, it can only infiltrate. So when I say like artificial timelines, when I say like the stuff that's distorted and like expiring and all this stuff, it's not this big like magic trick that's like all these like things and like potions and stuff. Like, it's the way you're imagining and creating reality, in the sense that, going back to personal development, we have a lot of people who are right now hooking their imaginative and creative energies into creating realities where consistently working on yourself and always looking for the next thing to fix and making $1 million a month helping other people look for the next thing to fix is, quote, reality. Personal development is just one example. So when I break it down for this way, sometimes people are like, oh, like you're imagining and creating a reality where we're not clear, sovereign, and free, just like in essence. And this is happening through like many, many different realms. And you can sort of like connect this into like, oh, I see people doing this in certain ways with spirituality. I see people doing this in certain ways with wellness, with this thing or that thing. So at a certain level, when we're describing this, in order to describe it, it has to be talked about as like dark energy or division or an artificial versus an organic reality. And this is so important. Like, I've said this a couple times, you get to a point in your clearness and in your own process where that drops off too. And it's all I just want to say it's all love, because that's like the only thing I can think of, but like it's all, you see it all for what it is. You're not hooked into it. You're not afraid. And you're clear, and you're a clear, emancipated conduit that can come in anywhere and do and be whatever it is you're meant to do and be. So I'll just read this little thing I wrote for a page. So it says, remember that as you complete your missions and uplevel, war, division, and duality timelines will completely drop off. You are no longer in the consciousness war because you have graduated from the war frequency altogether. You are no longer desperately trying to fix, heal, and save the planet because you have graduated from seeing planetary consciousness as something that needs to be healed and saved. You are no longer trying to push, force, will, and manifest your reality because you now operate within a reality where your will is unified with divine will, and all that is yours is actualized in divine timing. You are no longer consistently dealing with energetic sovereignty, initiations, holes, hooks, implants, cords, or any form of distortion in your field, because you are now running at a voltage and light quotient that is unavailable for infiltration. Though you can tune into, are aware of, and have emancipated compassion for the breakdown and combustion that is occurring in 3D, you see the higher frequency overriding, and purification process exactly for what it is. You are no longer creating, connected to, or available for distortion in any form. you not only become unavailable for any form of distortion or darkness, but darkness actually becomes afraid of you. Your light quotient becomes so high that your ability to overwrite and override lower frequencies is a natural extension of your state of beingness. You are no longer hooked into karmic-laden dense timelines through ego or fear-based service, because you now see that your highest level of service to yourself and the entire collective is based on anchoring and refining who you be at each new level and each new reality, and through that providing consistent and magnified opportunities for harmonization.
Boom. I'm dropping the mic. I love that. Is that what you've recently created?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's called Uplevel.
Uplevel. And when is that being released? Slashed whatever we want to call it. Available.
Unveiled.
Unveiled.
It should be on Monday the 25th.
Of January.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So this, I mean, we don't need to promote it, but we're going to promote it. So by the time this comes out, I mean, we don't need to say anything, because the people who resonate and harmonize with that, listen and say yes.
Yeah. It's timeline transfer mechanics, aka like an energetic breakdown of things like hooks, looping, more like subtle high level hooks, like the ones we've sort of been inferring, how to like the process of how you pull those out and how you get your energy back, the process of like ejecting and moving into a different reality, the process of anchoring into new reality. But again, like this is one of those things where there has to be a willingness, even if there isn't a sense that something else exists and you are like very successful and famous in the artificial matrix. Like there has to be like a willingness to even imagine that there's something beyond that. There's something beyond being like Tony Robbins, or beyond like all the things people do. There's something beyond the attachment and the hooks into all those things. And it's not that those things are going to go away, but you're going to be emancipated from your attachments to them.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've totally felt. And I was watching, I'll just say his name, Jay Shetty, this morning, because I've totally, do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I was curious. I'm like, okay, I mean, whatever, but like, cause he had Janae Aiko on there. So it popped up and I was like, okay, I'm going to go listen. Just quick note, because Pilar and I, have been listening to Janae, but
we love Janae.
Yeah, we love Janae. And so it was cool to like watch her on there, and I felt like he was, I'm just going to keep going down this road. Like, so like he has like those moments of true, like I was just exploring, because like he has those moments of like, man, that's it. Like he's there.
Mm-hmm.
But then like, I was like, okay, let me go look at his Instagram. Mm-hmm. And then it was like stories like, if you feel like this, then you need to this and come join this so you can be this.
He's hooked.
Yeah. And so just to use that as a real life example of something that I didn't see before. I noticed it, like there was something there, but I still tried to emulate that. But I have no desire whatsoever to emulate that, like whatsoever anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, Uplevel is exactly like on a much deeper dive into the core of the earth than like the skim. We just went like snorkeling.
Yeah.
This is like to like the trenches, like the oceanic trenches were.
Yeah. There's something else I want to say. And I know I can say this on your podcast. So it's pretty normalized in a lot of spiritual self-help realms to invest large sums of money in yourself constantly.
Yep.
So that's like, for a lot of people, that's like, yeah, that's what we do. We like always hire coaches and we always hire, like, okay, so something I'll like often end up telling people, or something that's important to recognize. And this is not, I know other people who are anchored in this too, but when people come to work with me and they've had no issue like investing in lots of artificial things, but then there's like a fear of investing in me and working with me. So part of like this process in regards to like, if we're going to look at investing in ourselves, when you get off these timelines, it's not that you never invest in yourself again, but the loop of investing in yourself, it drops off, because most of what was going on in that investment loop was just more like stuff rooted in or connected to distortion in some way.
And the
I'm
healing
bringing
and
this up
fixing.
because, yeah, I'm bringing this up because I've had like a couple experiences where I've almost felt compelled to say to people, you know, on the other side of this, you'll probably like never be spending this much money on yourself in the same ways you have again. But you'll still be receiving and like moving into these levels of abundance. And I feel like this is important. This is going to become an increasingly important conversation, because it's getting to the point where my main advice to people is only invest in people and things that are clear, that are very, very, very clear. And there can be this fear of like, well, what is that going to get me? Like, is that going to get me 6 figures a month? Is that going to get me this? Is that going to get me that? And again, like, it's easy for me to say this, even though it's taken me a while. And like, I know there are other people who hold this too, but like, what you get is your freedom. Like you get yourself back. And it just goes beyond, it goes so beyond what we've been programmed to invest in, and the way investing these large sums of money into things to help us be more X has become like very normalized. And I'm starting to just see how like that is a huge hook too, of like,
yeah, that's the whole coaching world.
Yes.
And healing world and all that.
Yes. And it's like, there's a part of me that's like, well, this is very like pompous of you to say. But there's another part of me that I've witnessed it enough times in enough clients now to see the level of freedom that people get from investing in becoming clear, and from investing in like becoming who they actually are and who they actually came here to be, and how on the other side of that, because you can see everything for what it is, you're out of the loop of like, oh, I need another program, I need another coach, I need another book, I need another this, I need another healing session. And it's not that you're not going to invest in yourself, but the frequency with which you invest and the level of consciousness and who you're actually investing in is completely different. And like, we need more clear people, because we're creating like a new ecosystem of money on these timelines where like it's clean money and it's moving through clear conduits to clear conduits.
I love that. Man, there's been so many things, but then I get like enthralled and engrossed with what you're saying. What came to mind when you were saying that was a client that I've worked with in the past. She reached out to me, told me this situation, and asked about coaching again. And I just sent a video back saying, you don't need it.
Right.
And that's what she needed to hear.
Yeah.
Was like, something was wrong, something was broken, she's not doing it, she needs to get this thing so she figures it out, and then she can have this and be this way. And so I was like, no, you don't need that.
And you're at the level where your highest service is saying no.
Yeah.
Like you can't create from distortion anymore. You cannot accept a client just to get money, just to feel okay like you got money, even though like it's gone. Yeah. You could never operate that way.
Amen. Well, Dan, Pilar, anything else? This is fun. This is just like watching you flow.
No, I mean, that feels good. I want to like tidy everything up and make everything make sense, and I know it's pointless.
Yeah, because everyone's gonna perceive it in their own way. And that's what we're unhooked from, baby. We don't care, but we love you still. Well, where can people, if they feel called to, dive into your world, into your, I'm trying to think of an ironic way to put it, but into like your, how
Blast off palace.
Blast off palace?
Yeah, that's the name of this room. I just named it.
Okay, there we go. So tell people how they can interface with your blast off palace. That sounds kind of like an innuendo, like a sexual innuendo, but do your thing.
Oh, I didn't even think about it like that. So my website, will you do links? I don't have to spell it or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. My website and my email list. That's it. I don't really use social media. Like my email list is 100% once you're on there. Like for example, with Uplevel, yeah, I'll be showing it, unveiling it to my email list first. I pour like most of everything I am tuning into, like what I'm like transmitting and like bringing through, it goes, the first layer of it goes to my email list. Like the deeper layers go to like my clients and other things I create, but like that's the place where things are coming through. Yeah. And like, don't bother like messaging me on Instagram.
Yeah, that's actually, last thing, can we talk about this? Do you have time?
Yeah.
It's the whole Instagram piece. Because that was one, liberating thing for me of letting go of the need to post this many times or say this or use pain points to attract people to sign up with me and all this fun stuff. Or the need to comment to everybody or to message everybody, right? Because that's like, yeah, I had good intentions. Like I love people, but it was hooking me in, like we've talked about, because no joke, I can say with full transparency, and now that I'm unhooked from it, it did fulfill this thing of, look, Ben, all these people telling you how awesome you are. Like, great TikTok video, you changed my life. Woohoo, And that, again, that's not bad, but it's the need of how I was relating to it is the thing that was unhelpful. So, because you're not on Instagram, and I'm on it less. Like I'll get back on if I feel like something I want to share, or need to share. But like I immediately delete the app after. Or I have Belle who does things for me. She will do it.
Shout out Belle.
How it doesn't seem real. Like, how do you not do business, right? Like seriously, it doesn't, right? Like how do you make, like, to the average person, thousands or tens of thousands a month, and right, like appealing to the ego, it's like, ooh, tell me more, right? But I'll just ask and let you explain it. Like, how do you not do it or do it, as far as like, man, just Pilar, tell us what the fuck, like how is this a thing, as far as no Instagram, no advertising? It's like your formula is your frequency.
Yeah. So there's this thing that happens online where people can perceive that like who you are is just who they've seen online. And this happens with me a lot. And I constantly have to tell people I've always been like this. I was like this before I had a business. So, and obviously I'm becoming more and more me.
Yes.
But I bring that up because before I ever had a business, I decided to not use social media because I was witnessing what it was doing to people. And I was, at the time, it was actually very scary for me. Like, I was afraid of it. I was like, this is an infected matrix that's like literally hijacking the consciousness of everyone. I don't feel afraid of it at all now. But when I was 23, I like up-leveled and left like a whole level of myself and went to go live and work on farms. And prior to that, I had Facebook, and I had sort of been using it, like not really. But I did this experiment where my whole time farming, I decided to not use any social media, not have any accounts, not go on it. So that was like, I think 3 or 4 years. And this is a whole like podcast, but like what I saw occur within myself and the way I started to perceive reality and other people who were very hooked into it, and the way I just started to see like the energy, what would happen to people's energy fields, and just the mass hijacking that was occurring. I was like, wow, I'll never use this again. So when I birthed my business, my intention from day one was I will not need social media.
And how long ago was that?
That I started in it was 3 years ago.
Cool. So 3 years ago.
Exactly 3 years ago.
I love it. So 3 years ago, and you had the intention to never use social media.
Yeah, and it wasn't,
or rely on it.
Initially it was, I won't use it, but the core intention was my business won't need this to do whatever it is I'm meant to be expressing. And like my awareness of what my business was for me was also different in the sense that like my ego like did not want a business. I didn't want to be online. I didn't want people to see me or hear me. I wanted to stay on a farm and be an herbalist and like stay offline and just like peace out. So that already sort of was there was a different relationship to my business and to like all the things that come with it from the beginning. So that, having already been emancipated from social media, and at that time having like a really, really strong awareness of the power of frequency and the power of mind specifically, I knew, and this isn't to say there wasn't doubts, insecurities, and tons of stuff that came up, but I knew my higher levels made it very clear, you're going to do this differently. And like, that's part of the job. Part of the job in the job is doing it, like setting forth a new template. Like, and I knew at that time, it was made clear to me that I would be helping to co-create a template that many other people would be stepping into. But at that time, I was like, meh. Like, I was just like, whatever, like, this is really uncomfortable. I don't know if that's true. I was getting hit from all sides of like, why aren't you using Facebook? You should have an Instagram. Why aren't you doing this? And I tried some things on social media. I eventually did make an Instagram because I wanted I wanted to go on this podcast, and the only way I could go on was with an Instagram. So I made an Instagram, and you can go back to my first post I ever posted. And the post is a decree to Instagram declaring my like sovereignty from it. And
really, that's dope.
It's like a letter, and I'm basically like setting forth of like, I will never be hooked into you, just so you know. Like, I might have one, but I'm not
I really
like
like that idea.
But anyway, so I how did I do it let's talk about like the practicalities. So because I had that like really encoded in my field and my energy was fully behind it, that doesn't mean, again, I didn't deal with like, well, maybe I should like do all the things like that came up. And there's a difference between being afraid of doing something because you're afraid, you feel like insecure, unworthy, and not wanting to do something because you clearly know it's like not meant for you. And sometimes you have to figure that out by doing it. So there were some things that like I figured out by doing and being like, no, that wasn't it. And this isn't for me. So my business very organically grew almost entirely through word of mouth for the first year. I didn't even have a website for the first 6 months. And I saw through everything how the thing running my business was my frequency and my level of consciousness, like tenfold. When I felt, so there would be times where, like, for example, I got the yes on like, yeah, you should make the Instagram. And I got the like, yes on like, start going on podcasts, and like things started opening up like really, really organically. But sorry, my cat. I already understood the way humans can and are meant to operate, and I use that to my advantage. I use playing in the field to my advantage. I used telepathy to my advantage. I used merging with higher aspects and higher realities to my advantage. I stayed committed to myself and my process, and there was like full trust that like the business would unfold at each next level as long as I stayed committed to that. So nothing in my business has like ever made sense. That's why when I'm like, let's talk about practicalities, it really was never practical. Everything has always like defied the norms and the standards. What I've come to find is at this point, with how infected we can, it's not even that social media is more infected. It's always been this way. We can just see it much more clearly now. There's going to be this like mass migration off of it. And what is that going to do? That's going to have to initiate people, certain people, into understanding the power of their frequency, the power of the field, and the power of being clear. So like for me, here's like a practical example. In my business, anytime I go through like my own clearing or like my own up leveling, the next group of people, the next set of creations, and the next set of instructions are always like given to me. They're always sort of like passed down. And this is also what I mean by like your will starts to align with divine will, in the sense that like when I was just giving readings, I felt in my heart, I'm supposed to be working with people one-on-one. And then simultaneously, my reading clients were like, I want to work with you one-on-one. And that's always how it's gone, where like, yes, at that point there was probably more separation, but I'm hearing myself and this literally makes no sense. Like this is not practical at all.
Well, right. But like, yeah, it doesn't make to the current standard. It's not practical,
so,
but to you,
okay.
like the practical,
yes.
It
So
makes
here's
sense.
what I'll tell people. If I ever got the instructions of like, you need to be on Instagram every day, I would do it. I would totally do it. That has not been part of my instructions. That's not in my operating manual yet. My manual has been, no, you're supposed to keep like holding this template and show people they don't need it in the way they think they do, and how to emancipate themselves from it. Not with the intention that people never use it again, but I don't know very many sovereign social media users. I just don't. And I know most people who have businesses, that's one of their weakest areas in their field, is their hooks into social media.
That makes sense. And yeah, and that, like what you said is, of course, someone could be called more than you, but be clear in using it, like using the platform, because that is the divine will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always said like, hey, you might like see me on Instagram one day every week for like 6 months. That might happen. But I never thought those aren't the thing. Those are never the thing. Those are just the portals and the tools. I'm the thing. And then beyond that, the thing that flows through me, which is also me, but that is also simultaneously greater than me, is the thing. Like I'm aware of what it feels like, at least in some ways, to step onto my website and step into my field. And that's all done very intentionally. Like I want people to feel like, whoa, this feels really clear. I might not make sense of what she's saying. Some of these words I don't know, but this feels really, really clear. I like that's set up very intentionally. That does 80% of the work for me, probably 90, if I'm being honest, 99.
99. So to wrap this up in like a bow, right? Because it's like, okay, because when you first said that to me, like it made sense, but it still doesn't make sense. It feels, it resonates, but I'm like, well, how in the hell, like, right? Because it's Instagram is the channel, it's the platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, this thing isn't making me successful or whatever. It's I am the thing, like you said. So how do we, I guess, what am I trying to say? Like activate ourselves as being the thing.
You get clear. Like this is like the simplest way I can put it. You can't know yourself as that until you have the clarity and spaciousness within your field to like actually see yourself as that, in the sense that like if you have all of these hooks into like personal development, this thing, I pay $50,000 a month for this thing and and then I create this and like I'm saving the world and shadow work and like like you don't have any space. This is like why when people come to work with me, for example, with you, first thing we did, clear. Like, I mean, we didn't even do it because you were already like on it, like it was already happening. But first thing is to get that person's energy back from anything it's hooked into, because that does all the work. Then you're like, oh, like it's not like, oh, you just need to love yourself more. You just like, it's like, yes, that's part of it, of course. But at this point, like the being willing to get clear, to me at this point in the game, it like supersedes everything, because that's an act of loving yourself. Like that's an act of seeing yourself as worthy. And it's from there, and this is so hard to explain. It's like I see this with my clients on a daily basis, but it's so hard to put into words, because like, you know what I'm talking about. You get to this level where you're like, oh, I'll use social media if I'm guided to, if I want, if it comes through me. But that's not going to be the thing that gets me business. Like that's not going to be the thing that gets me what I want. I already have what I want. It's already mine. Like it's so yeah, just like the commitment to being clear is like really important, but that's like such a nuanced and like multidimensional thing, because there's a lot of like programming out there that all those things I just described, those are the things that help you be clear.
Yes.
So it can be confusing, like you're in a hall of mirrors. It's like, wait a second, I thought me doing 800 things every day was making me clear.
Damn. Boom. All right, we will leave it there, because that was, but this is like yeah, we'll leave it there, but this is like something to study if you feel called to. I'm definitely excited to really listen back to this. But anyway, Pilar, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And yeah, go, like, for real, just go connect. I don't need to tell you because you feel it, but we appreciate you guys for listening. Pilar, thank you.
Thank you.